Welcome to NTD News. I'm Cindy Drucare. President Donald Trump stating today that Iran made a very big mistake in shooting down a U.S. drone. What Trump says isn't clear is if the mistake was intentional or not.
Iranian state news said the unmanned spy drone was brought down over the southern Iranian province of Hormozgan off the Persian Gulf. Washington, however, said the aircraft was targeted in international airspace over the Strait of Hormuz. The strait is a crucial choke point where about one-third of the world's oil shipments flow through daily. U.S. Air Force Commander Lieutenant General Joseph Gostella called the incident an unprovoked attack.
Iranian reports that this aircraft was shot down over Iran are categorically false. This attack is an attempt to disrupt our ability to monitor the area following recent threats to international shipping and the free flow of commerce.
U.S. President Donald Trump tweeted this morning that Iran made a very big mistake and later called it a very foolish move.
I find it hard to believe it was intentional, if you want to know the truth. I think that it could have been somebody who was loose and stupid that did it.
The United States and Iran have said they don't want any further escalation, but Iran has said it is prepared for confrontation.
Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina shares his thoughts on the situation, calling Iran a murderous regime and blaming Tehran for current tensions with Washington.
Senator Lindsey Graham said today that President Trump has gone out of his way to negotiate, but that the Iranians have turned him down by refusing to respond to a letter Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe recently hand-delivered for him.
The letter was rebuffed in an insulting way, and they attacked a Japanese oil tanker during the process. Now they shot down an American drone.
Iran has denied involvement in the attack on the Japanese tanker traveling through the Gulf of Oman last Thursday carrying Saudi methanol. Iran recently quadrupled its uranium production and threatened to boost its enrichment closer to weapons-grade levels. The country announced on Monday that in 10 days it would breach the internationally agreed limit under the existing 2015 nuclear deal.
So I talked to the president this morning. You need to tell the Iranians that if they increase their enrichment program for uranium, that would be a provocative act toward the United States and Israel, and all bets are off.
Graham added that if a U.S. military response is necessary, it should be focused on Iranian naval assets and oil refineries, which are the economic lifeblood of the country.
President Trump welcomed Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to the White House today as the two leaders work to push NAFTA's replacement over the finish line.
So I want to thank you very much, Justin, for coming to the White House. Thank you. Thank you, please.
The U.S., Mexico, and Canada agreed to an update of the 25-year-old North American Free Trade Agreement. Trump told reporters the USMCA trade deal is close to being finalized.
Well, this will be the largest trade deal ever made, and it won't even be close.
This week, Mexico became the first of the three nations to ratify the agreement. Trump said he is willing to discuss the plight of two Canadians held in China when he meets with the Chinese leader Xi Jinping next week. Beijing detained ex-diplomat Michael Kovrig and entrepreneur Michael Spavor in an attempt to pressure Canada to release a top executive at Chinese tech giant Huawei. She was arrested on December 1st at the request of U.S. authorities who want her to face fraud charges.
Anything I can do to help Canada, I will be doing.
The State Department unveiled its human trafficking report today with a different focus from past reports. It wants other countries to stop trafficking within their own borders. NTD's Miguel Morano explains.
This is the State Department's 19th Human Trafficking Report, a contribution to the global anti-human trafficking movement. And hosting this year's unveiling were Mike Pompeo and Ivanka Trump.
Human trafficking is a stain as well on all of humanity. We detest it because it flagrantly violates the unalienable rights that belong to every human being.
The freedom fighters from different countries who made the report possible were met with honors, such as Sister Gabriela Batani, the international coordinator of Talitha Kum, a global network of 2,000 Catholic nuns working to end human trafficking.
We seek to overcome any kind of ideological, religious, and political differences in anti-trafficking measures and activity.
Pompeo said that this year's focus is different. The focus now is to push other countries to solve this problem within their own borders.
Every individual and every individual country must confront this challenge on its own sovereign territory. Because in reality, traffickers exploit an estimated 77% of victims in their own home country.
The report indicates that today, nearly 25 million children and adults are robbed of their basic human rights. Venezuela, North Korea, and China were ranked Tier 3 this year, the worst tier in the report, for their inadequate efforts to stop modern-day slavery in their nations. According to the report, the U.S. may restrict its assistance to countries that fall under Tier 3. These consequences carry a message, Pompeo said.
That action and the message that flows with it is very clear. If you don't stand up to trafficking, America will stand up to you.
Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is facing pushback for her latest comments on social media about migrant detention centers. Today, she got a rare rebuke from the head of Border Patrol.
The respect and the value.
Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez taking heat for this recent Instagram post.
The United States is running concentration camps on our southern border, and that is exactly what they are. They are concentration camps.
During a House committee hearing today, the head of Border Patrol, the agency tasked with apprehending those who cross the border illegally, was asked about the Congresswoman's comments.
I personally find them offensive. I'm calling agents who are bringing toys in for children and buying them with their personal money. Agents are bringing in clothes. They're feeding babies. They are going above and beyond day in and day out.
Besides facing calls from Republican members of Congress for her to apologize,
there is no comparison, and to actually say that is really embarrassing.
She took heat from Holocaust historians who did not agree with the comparison. The associate dean of the Simon Wiesenthal Center, human rights organization researching the Holocaust, called it breathtakingly absurd and offered to make Holocaust educational materials available to her. This Holocaust Research Center also urged her to learn about concentration camps. Ocasio-Cortez defended her comments, saying in a tweet, "I will never apologize for calling these camps what they are. If that makes you uncomfortable, fight the camps, not the nomenclature." Holly Kellum, NTD News.
On Wall Street today, the S&P 500 hit an all-time high, rising close to 7% so far for the month of June.
The S&P 500 hit a record high today after the market opened, with investors anticipating the Federal Reserve possibly cutting interest rates as soon as next month. The Fed left rates unchanged at the end of its two-day policy meeting yesterday and pledged to act as appropriate to sustain economic health. Shares of Slack Technologies debuted in public trading today with a direct listing on the New York Stock Exchange at a price of $38.50 a share. Slack is a cloud-based messaging and communication platform designed for the workplace. The company was valued at more than $25 billion, well above the $16 billion reference point set by the New York Stock Exchange. The stock soared nearly 60% to more than $41 a share by midday. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
Chinese leader Xi Jinping started a two-day visit to North Korea today. Trump's special representative for North Korea says he isn't making any predictions about what will happen.
And I'd caution everybody, let's wait and see what the results are.
The U.S. Special Representative for North Korea, Stephen Biegun, on Wednesday made a cautionary statement about Xi Jinping's visit to North Korea.
And the most important thing about this is that China is not doing this as a favor for the United States of America. This is China's national interests. And in this case, Chinese national interests and American national interests coincide. So that's a pretty durable foundation for cooperation. And we have every expectation that President Xi will continue to send constructive but appropriate messages during his meeting over the course of the next 2 days in Pyongyang.
President Trump and Xi Jinping will meet during the G20 summit in Japan next week. Experts believe that for China, the current trade war situation is grim and that Beijing has limited negotiating power over Washington.
China always wants leverage, and they'll work to use this to their advantage, no doubt.
In this trip, China will seek leverage with the U.S. across a range of issues.
They're trying to send the signal that they can be useful in dealing with North Korea, and also that they can be they can interfere with any attempt to resolve the North Korean nuclear issue in a way that would be acceptable to the United States. So they're seeking leverage with the U.S. across a range of issues, not least in the trade domain.
After the Hanoi summit, the U.S.-North Korea negotiations were in a deadlock. In an essay published in both countries' official media before Xi's trip, he praised North Korea for moving in the right direction by resolving issues on the peninsula. He did not, however, mention the sanctions imposed by the international community to force North Korea to abandon its nuclear weapons and weapons of mass destruction.
I hope there's no mixed message that could give Kim Jong-un false hopes that he could play China off against the United States.
As of today, just 2 candidates remain in the race to lead the UK's Conservative Party. The winner will replace Theresa May as Prime Minister and preside over Britain's exit from the European Union. NTD's Jane Werrell in London explains what will happen next.
Their choice, the former London Mayor Boris Johnson, who was way ahead in the vote by Conservative MPs tonight, and Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt, who came second. There were just 2 votes between him and Michael Gove, who was eliminated from the race. We should know the winner by July the 22nd. Britain doesn't pick leaders by direct vote, unlike the US presidential system.
So instead of choosing the leader of the country, you choose the party that should be leading the country. And that was Theresa May, and now it'll be some other leader of the Conservative Party.
It's now up to about 150,000 Conservative Party members in the UK to vote for the country's next Prime Minister. According to official data, Conservative Party members have an average age of 57, with 42% living in the south of England. Most of them are professional or retired.
The rules of the Conservative Party are decided by something called the 1922 Committee.
So on behalf of the 1922 Committee...
Well, we're a trade union for the Conservative MPs, the backbenchers. It was up to us to decide the rules, and we set the rules for this particular contest.
He said a general election by the chosen Prime Minister is on the cards sooner rather than later.
The scaffolding on the Big Ben is sometimes referred to as a metaphor for the deadlock below it. MPs couldn't decide on a way forward with Brexit, and the deadline was extended till October 31st.
Do you think it'll happen on time?
I hope so. I hope. The one thing you could say about Brexit, it's had more dates than a Turkish food stall.
As for President Donald Trump, it sounds like he'll be happy with either contender winning the race, going by what he said during his state visit to the UK.
So I know Boris. I like him. I've liked him for a long time. I think he'd do a very good job. I know Jeremy. I think he'd do a very good job.
Conservative Party members now have 4 weeks left to decide who they want as the next leader of the party and the Prime Minister. Jane Werrell, NTD News.
Protesters in Hong Kong have touched the world with their peaceful and thoughtful conduct. While millions of people occupied the city's streets, they left without leaving a trace, and that's not all.
150 rounds of tear gas, rubber bullets, and pepper spray. All this from the police could not silence the people at the rallies in Hong Kong.
Sing hallelujah, sing hallelujah, sing hallelujah.
Sing Hallelujah to the Lord has emerged as the unlikely anthem of the protest. During the past 2 weeks, the Christian hymn hovers over every main protest site. Some hope the song could help sway the decision of the Hong Kong leader Carrie Lam, who is a Catholic. So far, she refuses to totally withdraw the bill that would allow sending Hong Kong people to China for trial. Millions of people have taken to the roads to protest, but the next morning, many of the streets are as clean as if nothing had happened. Protesters stayed overnight to clear away the trash. And many even become creative. After cleaning up the flowers put to memorialize a Hong Kong student who died during the protest, volunteers used them to decorate the streets. Manners are there even at the peak of the protest. Crowds part away to let ambulances and buses through. Some say the scene reminds them of Moses and his people crossing the Red Sea. The front line of the anti-extradition protest is full of Hong Kong students. Many are just teenagers. Activists have pledged to surround the Legislative Council on Friday if their demands are not met.
Boeing's 737 MAX is taking off again, at least in terms of sales so far. The model has been grounded since March following 2 fatal crashes. But at the Paris Air Show today, Boeing announced orders for 200 jets.  'NTD' reporter David Vives has more.
'NTD' reporter David Vives has more. 'NTD' reporter David Vives has more. 'NTD' reporter David Vives has more. 'NTD' reporter David Vives has more. 'NTD' reporter David Vives has more. 'NTD' reporter David Vives has more. 'NTD' reporter David Vives has more. 'NTD' reporter David Vives has more. 'NTD' reporter David Vives has more. 'NTD' reporter David Vives has more. 'NTD' reporter David Vives has more. 'NTD' reporter David Vives has more. 'NTD' reporter David Vives has more. 'NTD' reporter David Vives has more. 'NTD' reporter David Vives has more. 'NTD' reporter David Vives has more. 'NTD' reporter David Vives has more. 'NTD' reporter David Vives has more. 'NTD' reporter David Vives has more. 'NTD' reporter David Vives has
The Boeing 737 MAX might be leaving the ground again soon and returning to service, according to a company spokesperson who said it has received a letter of intent from British Airways owner IAG for about 200 planes.
We were very glad and very humbled and deeply honored when we finally got to a point to reveal to the world our commitment to one another on the 737 and to reveal to the world that the IAG group is putting their trust in us.
After 2 deadly plane crashes over the last year that killed 346 people, the 737 MAX was grounded. In March, while facing a lawsuit from the victims' families, Boeing's CEO said it was in the process of finalizing a software upgrade and revision of its pilot training for the aircraft series.
We know we fell short and we own it. We're going to stay true to our values of safety, quality, integrity, and we will become even better when we come out at the other end of the chute.
Boeing sold at least 286 planes in total at the Paris Air Show. Aviation experts at the show say 737 MAX planes could return to service in August, though Boeing itself made no comments to that effect.
Brad Pitt is launching into space in his sci-fi film Ad Astra, where he plays an astronaut traveling on an interstellar mission in search of his missing father.
Siri, I will destroy the project in its entirety.
In the official trailer for the film, Pitt's character, Roy McBride, is seen praising his father, who's been missing since a trip to search for signs of extraterrestrial life.
I do what I do because of my dad. He was a hero. He gave his life for the pursuit of knowledge.
While the film was originally slated to hit theaters on January 11, it has met with a series of setbacks. Last year, Fox moved the film's release date to May 24th. However, after Disney closed its acquisition deal of 20th Century Fox's film assets in March this year, the film was put on standby again. Ad Astra will now hit theaters later this year on September 20th.
And that's all for today's NTD News. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Cindy Drucker.